Hello, friends. Welcome to Heidi's Colorful Colorado. I'm your host, Heidi Ganal, a wife, mom of four, CU Regent, and the founder of Camp Bow Wow and the She Factor. With a passion for keeping the spirit of our state alive and well, I started this podcast to bring the people of Colorado together to celebrate the amazing state we call home. Come along on this journey with me as I travel across our old country roads in my vintage RV, interviewing folks that embody the true spirit of the Rocky Mountains. From the Front Range to the mile-high city to the wild west of southern Colorado, we'll celebrate the history, beauty, and Coloradans that make this place the colorful state it is. Each week, you'll meet people trailblazing the way for an even more colorful future for us all, making a huge difference along the way. Are you ready for a Rocky Mountain ride? Let's do this, Colorado. Welcome to Heidi's Colorful Colorado. I'm here at the Leadership Program of the Rockies Retreat at the Broadmoor. It's a beautiful day. James, I'm so excited to have you on today. Folks in Colorado, this is James Lindsay, Dr. James Lindsay, who is the director or founder of New Discourse and does all kinds of really cool stuff out on the Twitter world. And I read about the studies that you guys did or submitted. So we've got a lot to talk about. James, welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited.
So let's get started talking about the woke culture in higher ed, because I'm a regent at CU, so I live that every day. The woke culture, cancel culture, whatever you want to call it, it's really, for me, watching conservative kids get beat up on the front lines in the classroom, and not necessarily by faculty members, but by other students. Yeah. It's bullying almost.
It is bullying, actually. And the thing is most of the people who believe this ideology, if you want to call it worldview, woke worldview, really, this way of seeing the world, genuinely believe that they're doing the right thing. They're sincere, they're painfully sincere in their beliefs that they're on the right side of history, for example. You hear that. If you don't know, that's a Marxist line. That history is supposed to progress through the dialectical materialism to communism. So history has a goal. History has an end point. History ends at communism when everything's perfect in the utopia. A lot of the kids who believe this won't necessarily know that. They don't realize that it's a communist talking point to say the right side of history. They just think that they're on the right side of these important social issues like racism or sexism or transphobia or whatever other form of bigotry. And they're very, very sincere in their beliefs. And they're so convinced of their beliefs that they're moralizing, they're paternalistic, and they actually do bully other students and even faculty members to keep people in line.
Yeah, I mean, I get the reports every day, and they don't want to. The students can file formal complaints with the OIAC, but they don't typically. They just want to fly under the radar, and it's, they're being silenced is the bigger issue. They don't want to speak up because of the consequences if they do.
No, that's right, because the way that this all works is like everything you say is somehow indicative of your deep secret beliefs, and you're secretly racist under the surface or secretly sexist. And so if somebody can find any evidence that would link you to that, so like you've made a complaint or you file a suit or you raise the issue or you speak up or you speak back, then you've secretly taken your mask off and revealed that you're complicit in these systems of oppression and you're a bad person, and they will intensify the bullying on you very heavily. I hear from college kids a lot who are terrified to speak up, and what they say is, I might get kicked out of college, I'm afraid my professors will give me a bad grade, but most importantly, 75%, and that's the number I always hear, 75% of my friends won't be my friend anymore.
Oh, that's terrible. That's so sad. I've also heard of kids turning on their parents, like being just, calling their parents out and it fracturing families. And yeah. I think that may be a long-term goal of, dividing us even more. But
It is. And that's actually happening. I hear from that all the time as well. I hear, I don't know, I probably hear almost daily from somebody who's been estranged from a brother, estranged from a daughter, estranged from a son, where, somebody's taken this up and they're utterly intolerant to hear anything that disagrees. They won't possibly entertain a different idea, they even hearing another idea in the same space that they're in, or knowing somebody has a different idea, they say that's pushing your views on me, and they can be very, very aggressive. And so you see the breaking of relationships, the breaking of marriages, the breaking of parent-child relationships especially. It's really tearing everything apart. It's very, very poisonous.
All right, so what the heck do we do about it?
I like to make the joke that we have to sit strongly and tell the truth. It is, though. It does. It comes down to learning a little bit about it, but being willing and courageous enough to speak up. The biggest lesson that I've learned over the past maybe 6 to 12 months is that courage begets courage, and cowardice begets cowardice. Okay. So if I come into a space and I think I see something wrong and I don't know if I'm brave enough to say something, and I see somebody else be brave enough, I'll join in. And this is how a lot of people operate. Same thing, though, if something's going wrong and everybody kind of shies away or they just look the other direction or they don't say anything, that cowardice begets more cowardice. It's very difficult to be the first person. It's maybe more difficult to be the second person, depending on the reaction the first person gets. But after that, it tips the other direction very quickly. So courage begets courage. So you have to be brave to take that step. And what I see is a very positive message here. When I started speaking up about this, I jumped off a cliff, and I didn't know what was going to happen. And now I see it's more like people, if they speak up, it's like they jumped off the stage and there's all those hands ready to catch them and let them crowd surf. So there's a lot of reason to be courageous now, and there's a lot of reason to reflect. And what are your values? Are you willing to be a coward about your values, knowing that will inspire other people to stay in cowardice about theirs?
Are we past the point of no return? Can we shift this back the other direction?
I believe in America way too much to say we're past the point of no return. So I think we can. I think we can. I think a lot of normal people, everyday people have woken up. They realize something is badly wrong. They're starting to learn the details. I hear critical race theory out of normal people's mouths, which is a very academic word, you know. So I hear this a lot now. I think that the tide is beginning to turn. The grassroots is waking up. This is wildly unpopular. And poll after poll after poll, we're seeing 85 to 95% rejection of this. And so it's just a matter of everybody realizing that that crowd to catch you when you're courageous is there to catch you. So that people who are willing or feel the need to speak up will actually take the step.
Who's doing it the right way in higher ed?
You know, not many people at all, and the ones who are doing it silently. There are a lot of professors who stay kind of under the radar, but they mentor students in private, and I hear from those. Mm-hmm. There are people who are starting to study these issues and starting to fight back in the academic circles. But as far as academic administrations go, you know, there's a little bit of pushback in, I think the Florida University system just adopted what are called the Chicago Statement Principles of Free Speech. But even the University of Chicago, where that came from, is just totally underwater with this stuff. So higher ed is going to be one of the last things to come back around. And I hate to say that the answer is virtually nobody, but there's a massive deficit of courage happening in those institutions.
Yeah, and you know, the way I talk to parents and donors is vote with your dollar. You know, be very intentional and careful about where your child goes to school and also where you donate your money. If you are going to donate to a university, you better darn well have a good contract that spells out exactly where that money is going to go, how it's going to be spent, and that it can't be shifted.
That's right. I would like to tell people who donate, you know, maybe you're an alumnus or whatever, especially, you know, if you donate heavily, the university you went to 20 years ago that you loved is not the same institution anymore. It's like, and I don't mean to be this hard about it, but it's like if a dog gets rabies, it's not your dog anymore. And the university is sick. It is not the institution you went to, and you are supporting something that it needs to draw away from. And if you look at, for example, the University of Texas at Austin had this whole kerfuffle about apparently their school song is somehow racist or something, blah, blah, blah. And the board of trustees met, and the alumni donors met, and they said, if you get rid of the song, we're not giving you any more money. And guess what? The song stayed. So they do care about that still to some degree. So if you will think with your dollars and stop donating to a university that doesn't espouse your values anymore, and give them a condition. I would love to give you your donation again when you come back to reality. Then that message will be heard if enough donors and trustees do that.
Yeah, I agree with you. You know, what, as parents, what are the daily conversations we should be having to build up our kids' bravery or courage in speaking out about these things? How do we explain this to them? I have twins that are 9 and an 11-year-old.
It's really hard to explain to kids because it's so heady and academic. Mm-hmm. But what I like to, you know, when I talk to younger audiences, I like to, you know, remind them racism's always wrong. That two wrongs don't make a right, depending how young they are, obviously. Yeah. And so, you know, when you have somebody like Ibram Kendi, for example, and you don't have to necessarily name it with a kid, but when you have somebody saying that the remedy to past discrimination is future discrimination, you can say, no, that's actually wrong, isn't it? And is judging somebody by their skin color actually right? Did you actually have anything to do with this? No, of course you didn't. You know, do you really think that people are victims? No, of course. So you can have these kinds of conversations. You have to actually engage. And you know your kids best. You know their age-appropriate, you know, development best as well. So you have to do it on that level. But don't be afraid to engage. Don't be afraid to ask them questions and get them thinking about this in a kind of open-minded way. they have a pretty good intuition. They're smarter than a lot of people remember when we get scared that they're being brainwashed or indoctrinated. It's the ones who are actually 18 to 22, 25 or so that are the hardest to reach. 11, 8. There's still a lot of work you can do to kind of, help them realize that this is not the way.
So the 18 to 24-year-olds, I have a company called She Factor that helps young women launch their lives. And so I talk to them a lot. I mean, they're almost paralyzed. They're afraid about what to post, about what to bring up with their friends. And they want to be seen as, very woke and accepted.
I would engage people at that age, because they're old enough, to just ask them directly, is this the life that you want to live? Is this the life that you want your children to live when you grow older and have kids, if you have kids? Is this the life that you want to have to deal with forever? Do you think this is going to produce a better working environment? Is it working?
Yeah.
Like, how does it work, and is it working? And the answer is, of course, no, it's not working. And how does it work? Nobody knows how it's supposed to work. And so if you engage them on that level, and just straight up, I hate to put it this way, but that age group can be quite good, but they can be quite, self-centered still a little bit. And so ask them in terms of themselves. Is this the life you want to live? Do you want to be afraid of being canceled all the time? Well, the saying is, be the change you want to see in the world, right? Well,
that's my favorite saying. I say that all the time. Be the change we want to see in politics and education and culture.
So if you don't want to live this way, there is an answer, and it's to be brave enough to stop. And then the hardest part, because of the social networks with these kids, is to get the message into them that people who treat you this way and don't reach out and think, no, I know my friend and she's not that way, she must have meant something. People who won't give you that benefit, they're not actually your friend.
Yeah.
They're trying to control you. They want you to be a certain way for how they feel. And life is not always pleasant, and you are going to lose some friends, and you can always leave the door open and hope they come back around. But that actually has to be a part of this, because when the loss of friendship goes both directions. And so if you can stand in your principles and you can know what's right and you can say, this is the wrong road and I don't want to keep living this way, that sends also an invitation to those friends that it will abandon them, that there's another way. You can come back. And we don't do that here anymore. And it's much more welcoming. It's a much more welcoming environment not to do this than to do it. And they'll see that as long as you kind of bring that light to their eyes.
Okay. Couple questions to wrap up that I ask every podcast guest. What do you love about Colorado? What's the spirit of Colorado mean to you?
As a Tennessean, I have to love that Colorado has this image about how it's very free, it's very individual. I understand the politics aren't quite there lately, but that's the brand, right? And of course you got your Western, but it's very colorful, it's very beautiful. I come from right on the edge of the Appalachian Mountains, which I think are the friendlier, softer alternative. So I like to see the majesty of the Rockies. The natural beauty here is off the charts, but it's that kind of not quite fully frontier, but that individual, free spirit of Colorado. And by the way, everybody here is super nice.
Oh, good.
I only know one state that's nicer than Colorado.
What's that?
Nebraska.
Oh, no.
They are.
Unless it comes to football.
No, yeah. Well, probably not that. Not on the field.
Actually, they are really nice at football.
They are really nice. They're really nice people. But other than that, Colorado has been some of the nicest, most generous people. I spent a little bit of time out here over the years. Some of the most nice and generous people. It's different than Southern hospitality, but it's more real. Don't tell my friends back home that.
All right, one last question. What's the most Colorado thing you've ever done when you're here?
I almost fell off of what's the gap up above Keystone and Breckenridge. There's a pass up there,
yes.
Loveland Pass.
Yes,
it's 12,000 feet or something.
Yes,
and we went up there in the winter, and I slipped on the ice and almost fell off the cliff. That's by far the most Colorado.
That is not good.
I almost got hit by lightning up there too, which bolt from the blue or whatever.
I think you better stay off Loveland Pass.
Yeah, no kidding. So that's in my head. They're whoa, Colorado is got some wild geography. So I figured almost falling off of a pass counts as
I think that's
Rocky
pretty good.
Mountain adventure.
That makes the top 3.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, James, for joining, and I really enjoyed your presentation. I look forward to the work that you do and helping America get back to America.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today on Heidi's Colorful Colorado. If you enjoyed this conversation, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe. And definitely follow me on Instagram to keep up with my latest adventures. In the meantime, happy trails from me, Heidi Ganahl.